On October 20th, 1926, Tom King, formerly of the Hop Sing Tong out of California, was in the American Kitchen restaurant peeling potatoes when 5 members, a hit squad from the Bing Kong Tong of Los Angeles, came through the back door and gunned him down. This resulted in a running gun battle. Sheriff Mahoney of the Mojave County Sheriff's Department and deputies in pursuit along the National Old Trails Highway all the way to the California border, Colorado River, where the car crash, the 5 men were apprehended. They were transported to Prescott for holding for trial. The resultant legal situations that transcribed from this were quite a media sensation. Went all the way to the state Supreme Court as both Tongs hired attorneys filing appeals. Sheriff Mahoney created quite a spectacle by raiding some of the Chinatown camps and Chinamen's houses here, confiscating weapons in an illegal manner. Ultimately, all the men were found guilty and sentenced to hang in Florence, even though one of the key witnesses, the only witness to this murder, disappeared in another unsolved case at the same time. At the last minute, the youngest member of the Tong, his sentence was commuted to life in prison as he was only 17 years of age at the time. The other 4 men were all hanged in Florence, Arizona in 1928. It's now a forgotten chapter here on Route 66. Ed's camp on Route 66, picturesque ruins today, started by Ed Edgerton, came to this area in about 1919 from Michigan for health reasons. Health reasons precluded his making any money with mining, so instead he squatted here along what was then the National Old Trails Highway. Found a lucrative endeavor in selling gasoline out of a 50-gallon drum initially. As traffic picked up with the certification of Route 66 in 1926, his complex started to morph into a rock shop, a cafe, rented rooms on the porch for $1 a night and provided water, had a garden out back, provided fresh tomatoes and vegetables. The stores in Oatman. Originally this was called Little Meadows. It's been an oasis on Route 66 for travelers for hundreds and hundreds of years. The first documentation of camping here was with the Father Garces expedition in 1776. During the frontier era in the 1850s and into the closing years of the 19th century, this was known as Little Meadows. Over the years, it's sheltered quite a few people here, and for Mr. Ed, by the 1930s, he had deemed that this was a lucrative enough location that perhaps he'd better do something besides squat here. Purchased the property and started building the complex as we see it today, but business proved to be so busy that he never had time to ever finish. One of his regular customers in the late 20s and early 30s was Pickwick bus lines. It went on to become Greyhound bus lines. They would stop here on their westbound journey to let the vehicles cool. On the eastbound journey, this is where they stopped to let brakes cool. Even when the highway was bypassed in 1952, of course the business fell on hard times, but Ed stayed on. Ed was a self-taught geologist of international renown, and later in his life he actually taught at a local college geology. And up until his death in the late 70s, he still grew tomatoes here, are known throughout the area. Ed was never one much for tossing anything aside, finding a use for most everything, or thinking he would at some future date. The Oldsmobile that he drove out here from Michigan in 1919 still slumbers under the desert sun. Cool Springs started out as a simple service station and a cabin or two. By the 1930s, it had evolved into a restaurant, cabins, gas station, garage. Suffered pretty greatly, of course, with the bypass of Route 66 in 1952. Complex burned in the early 1960s. Then in 1992, it was rebuilt temporarily as a movie set for Universal Soldier with Jean-Claude Van Damme. They proceeded to blow it up in the movie. About the only thing left when Ned Luchner purchased the property, as you can see, is the bleached white columns and the white stone wall on this end, which are original to the property. The rest is pretty much a recreation using as much of the original materials as possible. With quintessential Western landscapes here, this is a photographer's dream paradise now on the resurgent interest.
Finally showing up.
You've got to have one of the best jobs in the world.
Me?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're not. Ned and I aren't boss and employee anymore. We're friends. Well, when a guy tells you run the business the way you want, just pay the bills, you do whatever you want. Well, how can you go wrong?
But
you can't.
You know, when you're on Route 66, living in this landscape, this.
Yeah, and I live right down here.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than this.
No, I'm not complaining, Jim. I'm not complaining at all. I got the county to put a Route 66 sign out here by the bathroom, and that's because I know the girl that does all the signs. She went in and voted for me and said he needs one there. So yeah, I got one the other day.
This is better than being an Amish farmer.
Probably. Cool Springs. This is cool. This is the life of Cool Springs for the last 80 years. This is Cool Springs in 1926. Just the building and a couple cabins. You can see the Model A's sitting there. They had a booming business through the 20s, 30s, 40s, and part of the 50s. They added a bar and restaurant, some more cabins. This was a little fix-it shop. Matter of fact, there's a hole back here where they changed the oil. In 1942, we think, they painted the gas station white for reflection from the sun. This sign right here is 18 feet long, 9 foot high, and neon. When they kicked that on, they could see it at Yucca 18 miles away. In 1958, the road went in from Kingman to the border. 62, they quit selling gas. 64, they walked out of the building. When they walked out of the building, this is what happened to it. Vandals. You leave it out here by itself, vandals take care of it. In 1991, this is all that was here, right here. That was it. Hollywood came and made a movie called Universal Soldier with Mr. Van Damme. They built this scene. Everybody thinks there was a building. There was never a building here. They built the building, and they blew it up. This wall here in the new building, this wall right here, is right back here. The pillars you walk by, and that wall's out front. That's the story of Cool Springs. Named after a spring that goes up about 3.5 miles up there. Pumps out 50 gallons of water a minute. Been doing it for 100 years. Still pumping out water. Any questions?
Yes. Why do you wear that pink hat?
Because everybody wears a black one. I had a young man come up to me one day and asked me, how come you wear a pink cap? I looked at him and says, because I can. That's all it was said.
Well, simple enough.
Yeah. And now it's gotten to a point where, where's the pink cap? So it's just fun.
November 1914, when Barney Oldfield and the Racers, the Desert Classic, the last in the series, was coming up this canyon, they were doing so in a steady rain that had transformed this into mud. This was the National Old Trails Highway up until 1920. Then the road was rerouted down through the Chadwick Drive segment, which later became Route 66. The road connected with downtown Kingman on Topeka Street, then continued out on what is now 4th Street and Old Trails Road, which is also the pre-37 alignment of Route 66. From this point, the National Old Trails Road runs flat and straight out towards Hackberry. allowing the racers to pick up speed, sometimes hitting 65 miles an hour across the flats of the Wallapai Valley. This obscure little stretch of empty desert, for Route 66 enthusiasts, the obscure moment here is that this is also the National Old Trails Highway. It's also the scene of one of the great tragedies along Route 66 here in western Arizona. July 5th, 1973, workers for Doxal Western Energy were transferring 33,000 gallons of propane from a rail car at a siding to the storage unit. A stray spark caused by a wrench ignited the propane, turning it into a blowtorch. Instantly, the two workers in the rail car, one was incinerated, one was severely burned, but managed to make it to the Highway Patrol office directly across the highway. The fire department responded. At that time, Kingman largely had a volunteer fire department. This would be July 5th, 1973. Firefighters were called through KAAA radio station, would issue a call to the firefighters, and of course responded. At that time, they had very little equipment for fighting the fire. Their main response was to spray water trying to cool the tank. The flames were sucked into the tank, resulting in a massive explosion of 33,000 gallons of propane, sending debris in a fireball 200 feet into the air. The resultant brush fires, businesses, damages, closed Route 66, shattered windows as far as downtown Kingman. Businesses were decimated. The Feldspar processing plant, Whiting Brothers Station, Route 66 was closed. Fillion's Auto Wrecking. Bureau of Land Management brought in slurry bombers to control the spreading fires. Eventually, the death toll would climb to 170 people.